welcome to Sonic Talk special. If you've been watching the news, you may have heard that there's a new plugin format out, which is comes from a collaboration between Bitwig and Yuhi. And as if by magic, we have representatives from both companies here at the moment, because it's no mean thing. It's a fairly non-trivial kind of thing to try and launch a new plugin or launch a new plugin format. So we have Urs Heckmann, who's here in Gran Canaria. I think with everybody's in their own little spaces. How are you, Urs?
I'm good, thank you. So yeah, indeed, Gran Canaria Island, just like our last interview. So
excellent. I don't blame you at all. And we also have Placidus Schelbert, who I believe I recognise that room. That's in Berlin. So you must be at Bitwig HQ in Berlin. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I'm at the Bitwig HQ and very happy to be part of our talk today.
Excellent. And we've also got Alexandre Bique, who I think is somewhere in sort of southern mountainous France. So how are you, Alex?
Hi, Nick. Yes, I'm in the southeast of France, like the Alps of Provence, and I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, so you guys, I mean, this is basically, I mean, as I said in the intro, it's a pretty non-trivial move to do this. I mean, what's the history of this? I mean, I understand it's been in development for quite a long time. Perhaps Urs, if you wouldn't mind kicking things off.
Yeah. So I think it happened when Alexandre worked for us like about 8 years ago to port our plugins to Linux, and in that context, he came in contact with plugin interfaces and all that, and I think he he got an idea there, and this is, I think, where the seeds were laid out, I think.
So I suppose the thing is, what was I mean, we should probably start with a kind of, so what is clap and why is it a thing? Why is it necessary? Perhaps, Alex, if you were to go first there, because obviously if you saw the opportunity, it must have been something that made you think, I need to do something about this, right?
Yeah, right. So when I started clap, at that time, there was LV2, that was an open source plugin format. And I even tried to port the UE plugin to LV2, but I did hit some technical issues, and it was difficult for me to understand how LV2 was working and so on. And VST3 was not like easily available. You had to ask a license for that. The other one had other problems, like they were not designed to be portable or locked to certain systems. And I had my own also ideas of how it should be. I like a lot to write code, and I wanted this to be a pleasant experience. And I also saw that it was important that you have a license that is very inviting, like the one that we have. So I guess that's how it started.
Right. So I mean, in terms of what this might be. Presenting in terms of the end user, because I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff under the hood that you could go into that perhaps many of our listeners might not fully understand the implications. And what are the implications of this new plugin format? And is it one thing that I was curious about? Is it more about the interface between the sort of core functionality of the plugin function? You know, like if it's an echo or an instrument, that largely is kind of intact. It's about the interfacing of how you get to it and the controls of that. Am I on the right lines there?
Yeah. So it's a plugin format. So first thing is that it allows you to write in and to integrate it inside the DAW. So it does things that have been done already for a lot of time, but because we also have a lot of experience now, like we know that we wanted to do polyphonic modulations. There are MIDI 2 coming, like we have how to say in English, like a lot of recul, like we can see a little bit further, and we designed like new paradigm in clap. So for us, it's an opportunity to take the technology further and really offer a better experience to the user in the end, but also offer a very good experience for the developer, because when you write a plugin, you should have fun. It should be a pleasant experience. And there are like plugin developers that are maybe very good at math and DSP, but that are not so strong at coding. And if the interface is very easy, it's a huge step forward, I suppose.
So, Placidus, is it fair to say that in terms of what the end user will experience is a more kind of real time control amongst many different threads? So, for instance, you mentioned Alex mentioned polyphony, polyphonic modulations. That presumably means per note. So, kind of along the lines of MPE. Is that kind of what we're thinking here?
Yes, maybe I should explain first that I'm not a developer. So Alex and Urs are developers. I am not. Regarding the standard and what it does, I think what it probably does very well is have a lot of clarity in the definition, because we've seen with the previous standards that they leave room for interpretation in areas where this can lead to a lot of different implementations. So you will have hosts that implement the API in a certain way, and then you have hundreds of plugins that implement the API in again different ways. And so this results in an incredible, we should not call it ecosystem, but an incredible landscape of fixes for each plugin. We, as a DAW maker, we have to fix a lot of things to ensure that the plugin runs smoothly in Bitwig Studio. We need to make sure that it doesn't break certain things, that it doesn't break itself, that it doesn't break us. Yes, in many small patches. Alex and Urs can explain this much better than I. So
interesting.
That's something that we try to do.
So Urs, I mean, from a plugin developer point of view, I mean, I suppose the other thing I wanted to find, is it an audio transport, or is it more to do with the control and the interfacing between, the end user and the DAW with the plugin with clap in between? How would you kind of characterize it?
Well, I think the most interesting part of it is really its simplicity in that regard. So simplicity does not mean that it's not full featured. So it's got all the features you will ever need or want, because it's extensible. But any developer who looks at one single file understands how the plugin format works. So this is a huge step forward to things where you have like hundreds of files that you first have to see before you understand how something works, or you have to read tutorials or something, right? So this is what I think is a major fact or a major feature that contributes to stability. So people will understand what they do, and they have no way to implement it differently, because there is no ambiguity there. So and it also is so well defined. It's built in testing. Right, so the plugin will know when it misbehaves or when the host misbehaves, and they can tell that to each other.
Right, so this primarily came from kind of for standardization for the developer side of things, so that things would become a lot clearer, less messy. I can see that, and that makes a lot of sense. So in terms of how that benefits the end user, what are the kind of key things? Because, I mean, obviously we're adding more functionality here. What are the kind of main benefits to the end user that you would say? I don't know who wants to go first with that.
Well, I could start. So the very first thing that you can see is the polyphonic modulation and even voice taking, like in certain situations where the plugin supports it. And when you play with it, you see that it's already a big step further, because the first time you do it, you say, no, it's not possible, it's not happening. But yeah, it's really possible. And the day then you go back to monophonic modulation, it already feels old. Like it's already, we are already one step ahead for that. And there are like this multi-threading thing is also very nice, but we also have super exciting ideas on the roadmap. And I think in the end, we will really improve the experience for the user. There is one extension that we plan to develop, which is that the DAW will be able to collect and save all the files that you are using within your plugin. So if you have like a drum machine with 16 samples that are coming from your external disk, you can collect and save that into your project, reopen your project into another DAW, and then you get your files back. And I think this is a very good improvement for the user.
That indeed does sound almost, that alone sounds a lot better. So Placidus, I mean, in terms of, because I know Bitwig are really big on modulation and control, what with the grid, the polygrid, and all of that kind of really deep parameter stuff. I mean, did this come, how hard is this going to be for DAWs that don't already have that framework in to adopt? Is it a fairly straightforward way to bring things together, or how hard are you having to convince them to get everybody else to adopt it, I suppose, is the question I'm asking.
Who needs another standard? That's indeed a big question. And we ask ourselves that as well. Of course. It's painful. And adding another standard, you really need good reasons to do it. I think for developers, the bigger the ecosystem inside a company, or the bigger the code base, not the ecosystem, the bigger the code base in one company, and the more diverse the code base, the harder it will be to implement a new standard. So one thing is the standard and how it's defined, and the other thing is who you are, what you have. And so the better organized you are, the easier it will be for you to implement the standard. We did the best we could to make it as easy and as quick as possible to implement Clap. But naturally, imagine a one-man band with one plugin. It will be a lot easier than a large company with dozens of plugins that works with a platform and has all kinds of other restrictions. So we did the best we can, but it will be, there's no denying, it will be very hard to implement Clap for certain companies. But remember that there's a migration going on from VST2 to VST3, and we all know the story of that, how much work that has been for all the companies that have been doing this migration. This has been a huge effort for some of the companies out there. Yeah, so we hope it will be easier with that.
I see. Well, so Urs, I mean, I was going to say, I can see you wanted to come in there, so please do.
Yeah, so I think there's another dimension to it, and this is that there are now DAWs, just like Bitwig Studio, but also others who have completely different concepts than the traditional DAWs. So they have added whole different paradigms of how you deal with plugins, how you deal with audio, what you do, and how you interact with a DAW. And there's one thing that I think is obvious, is that the traditional DAWs are they are super mature, right? So I think without stepping onto anybody's toes, I think that many of these companies have reached a state, or the software has reached a state where improvement is almost not happening anymore. It's like, okay, we have a new file format, or we copy something from there, that, like the clips or whatever. So what Clap offers to them is also to add new meaningful features in a year or two. So we think that adopting something like Clap, something that has so much prospect, is also generating a prospect for these companies to come up with new ideas of how to use these features in their like so far very traditional DAWs.
And the ecosystem, I'm using that word constantly, this time I mean it, is is changing a lot. Of course, the DAWs, certain DAWs are very mature, but at the same time, the context in which they live is changing. One thing that is changing, especially now on the Apple platform, is that Apple has migrated to their own processors. And what does that mean? That means new, very energy efficient, multi-core, super powerful processors that actually offer benefits for software developers, which you need to make use of. And for instance, Clap has incredible possibilities to distribute the workload onto multiple cores, and that's a super important feature for every musician, even without adding new features on top. It just means that you make use of this incredible power. And we did tests with Diva in Bitwig, where we saw a performance increase of up to twice the amount of instances we could load in Clap versus in VST. So this is a huge message. And let me say that this is also connected with some of the companies that are very interested in the standard, this performance boost and the power that the plugin standard can offer to the host and to the user, essentially.
Interesting. Right. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, that's a really valid point. I mean, more efficiency. I mean, I suppose that's the thing that kind of goes back when you're dragging a whole kind of sack of legacy code along with you every time you want to change something. It kind of means that you I guess, with a new format, you can free yourself a little bit from that baggage. I was going to ask Alex, will Clap run alongside, as you transition, will it run alongside existing platform interfaces, AU, VST? Will you be able to have a Clap plugin or an AST, a VST plugin or an AU plugin, depending on what you feel like, on what you've got?
Well, I think that the collection of plugins that you have, it won't disappear because of Clap. So Clap is a new possibility that you get. You can use Clap, but it doesn't mean that we need to exterminate everything else. So...
Okay, I just wanted because I think people will probably be thinking, does this mean if I have Clap enabled DAW, does that mean I can still run my old plugins as well? I mean, I guess that's what I was asking.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, yes.
Another big question is obviously, is it free? I mean, is it free to the developer, because usually you pay licenses for these things? Is it free to the end user?
The standards that are out there are also free, or many of them. Ours is also free, but with the license that we grant, it also means that we can't pull the carpet away under your feet. And that's the big difference, that our standard is not proprietary, it's open source, and it comes under the MIT license, which means that no one can ever pull the carpet away under your feet.
Oh, does that mean that the code repository is a sort of public record and people, it's not behind somebody's kind of company firewall? Is that, roughly speaking, what that means?
Yes, it's been developed as open source, publicly visible the whole time, so people could watch the progress happening every day.
So, I mean, I suppose in terms of free, as in, if somebody, I don't know, let's say DAW Maker X decides to release an upgrade that includes the Clap functionality, then presumably, because this has happened before, this is a problem that plugin developers get into where, as you were saying earlier, they spent a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of work that, would ideally nice to be paid for, just integrating, from VST2 to VST3. So hence, we're seeing the proliferation of subscriptions and that kind of stuff. I mean, do you see that this is going to be an easy path for people to be able to go, well, look, we've done a Clap version of our plugin? I mean, I guess Urs, you probably would know this because you develop plugins and you have been. I suppose you've probably been integrating it sort of sooner than everybody else because you're one of the founders of this idea, but...
So yeah, I mean the thing is, I mean we have done all the groundwork, right? So the whole time while Alex and, by the way, many people from the industry, it wasn't just Bitwig or you, it was like loads and loads of people, more than 20 people have worked on this. So while these people were designing the specs and everything, we already implemented it in our software. And then when there was a change, we had to fix our software again with the changes and so on and so on and so on. And the same thing happened in, for instance, in the search project, right? So where people worked on an open source version of on an open source software synthesizer. So we really had a lot of work with it because, of course, it was a moving target the whole time. But now that that's done, I think it's fairly easy to port. And we have seen people who did not have JUICE or any of the known platforms or libraries or frameworks, who just had their completely own rolled VST2, VST3, and whatnot software, and they ported their stuff in one day. So that's possible.
That's the magic number, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I mean, and sort of rather ironically, you seem to have come up with the standard for an entire plugin format quicker than they managed to finish the MIDI 2.0 specification, which is an impressive piece of work. Well done, everybody.
Yeah, that's indeed true. This is, by the way, is another keyword, right? So they approached us and they want to work with us now to ensure that that club gets MIDI 2.0 right. So that's a whole new dimension of things that we still have to work on with them, obviously. So this is going to be a lot of fun, I think.
So you've launched, you made the big sort of the big splash. You've got the video out. Nice sounds in the video, by the way. Nice to hear a lot of good UHEAP synth sounds there. What happens next? I mean, what's the next step? When is anybody likely to see any kind of user end result?
Maybe I can step in here. So first, the project being open source and with the MIT license, which is free, meant that people were getting aware of this standard, who are working a lot with open source libraries and code bases. And this means that this standard already now, after the launch, has potential to be bigger than the audio industry, because we have a company like Epic Games that is very interested in clap. The issue that we've seen in our industry is sort of a protectionism. It's, I guess, in every industry the same, that you want to develop things to your own benefit, which is fair enough. That's how that makes sense in a way. But we believe at the same time that our industry is very fragmented and not very big. And we think that we need to reach out to each other and work together on certain things to make our industry more attractive, because we are losing talent that decides to go into the gaming industry, or maybe even decides to found a bubble tea startup just because that's cooler. I don't know. But we now have a standard that is available and that doesn't scare you off. When you enter our industry, when you have an idea to create a plugin, you now have a standard that isn't proprietary. You are free to use it. There are no hooks attached. You don't. You might not. You won't have a lawyer calling you because of this. So this is super important, I think.
I suppose the thing is, though, I mean, as I'm kind of, if I'm thinking, I'm really excited to use this, but I presume Bitwig is going to be one of the first people to adopt, and a DAW that will have this as an available, when you get Bitwig, you'll be able to use clap plugins when they become available. How do you? When do the next ones come along, I suppose, and what's the roadmap for that?
We launched and chose this date very deliberately because we wanted to deliver something. And so, as you are saying, Bitwig is about to release 4.3, which is our latest version. And It's currently in beta, and with the final release, Clap will be available in Bitwig Studio, and Urs is doing the same for all his plugins. So we now already have, alongside the open source project of Surge XT, and we have and even more product already available. So we decided to announce not with an idea, but also with examples, and not with test examples, but with us actually doing the legwork. So it's already done.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, I suppose the next thing is where does it go next? I mean, Alex, say the UHE plugins and the Bitwig devices will all have these opportunities. What if I then decide, okay, I'll go for that, and I mean, it would make no difference to me if I'm already a Bitwig user, say for instance. But what would the benefits be that I would see? I mean, obviously we've seen the efficiency, we've seen the polyphonic modulation. Are there any other kind of really key big ones that we should look out for?
I think there are like some things that are like in the draft folder. We have a folder with a set of ideas, and there is one which is about the micro-tuning support. So we could have something a little bit like MTS, but then controlled by the DAW. And the important thing is we are very open to ideas and contributions. So even the DAW tomorrow, who has an idea, could come up with a specification for an extension, and we could discuss it all together, make it like really good, and then push it to the standard. So the possibilities are endless.
And you have to understand, Nick, that Alex is always about 3 steps ahead of us. So he's already thinking of what is coming. But we are now, of course, here to talk about what is already there. And for example, what is there is a preset handover is a lot easier in Clap. So we've always had the issue that there are all these browsers inside a DAW that you have to navigate. And with Clap, it will become a lot easier to access the presets of the plugins. Am I correct, Urs and Alex?
We have something in the cooking, but it's not yet in the GitHub repository because it was part of another project and idea. But yeah, those things are definitely things that we are going to think about. And
let me just add something to. You asked before what motivation there is basically for others to join the club, right? The Clap Club, and even if a DAW does not yet have a concept for these new features, and they just want to implement a basic clap support, that already gives them a lot of these features because a plugin can already modulate another plugin, right? So, or actually not really on the same level as if it was in the DAW, but a plugin can already send polyphonic MIDI messages from one plugin to another plugin, and that is already a very, very huge thing. And there will be. I'm sure of it. There will be loads and loads and loads of plugins that add functionality to DAWs that the DAWs do not have yet, because they hook themselves in between and they communicate with each other or send modulation and stuff. So and even a funny part of this is that occurred to me is that if DAWs wanted to adopt Clap in and they want to just start with the standard version, they can add all the features that Clap has as a plugin first before they put it into their DAW. So there are built-in concepts and built-in possibilities that we haven't even thought about that are actually possible, and some of the guys are already exploring these. So there's a plugin that adds micro-tuning to the Bitwig devices, right? Which they didn't have, but there's a Clap plugin that can do that for them. So,
interesting. Alex, go.
It's a MTS client that is producing note expressions actually to adjust the tuning of the notes and so on. So even if your DAW can pump out like the note expression event from the plugin, then you get that on your note stream. And it's very interesting because, you have those plugins which are like note generator and pattern generator and so on that makes a sequence for you. And then they could also generate note expressions. They could add new dimensions to what they are doing.
I mean, I suppose the challenge, like we've seen with a number of DAWs, and they're, like Ableton recently made a reasonably elegant attempt at editing MPE automation data. It's kind of like, the light bulb went off and you go, that's cool. Does it require those sort of things to happen within a DAW to then be able to handle that level of automation? Because if we're talking poly automation, when you're looking at that in your grid editor or whatever it is that is your note editor, does that mean that you have to put the hooks in, or is there a way to kind of abstract that somewhat?
So the idea is, I think, that if a DAW already has MPE, or if a plugin has MPE, they pretty much literally already have the infrastructure that is needed to support some of the more advanced features of clap, like the polyphonic modulation. So once the infrastructure is there, it's possible to hook into that and implement on top of that. And then in the next step, they can go even further. And there's a secondary concept that's even better with node IDs. And with that, it can. This is the thing about clap. It can be gradually implemented and improved over time for the people who implement it. They can start with the basic feature set, and they can just keep adding over time. And it's basically designed to do that.
So just wanted to come back out again, sort of zoom out. So obviously Bitwig is going to be coming along with clap integration. UHE plugins are going to be coming along with the clap integrations. In terms of kind of musical examples and clear sort of like, there will presumably be a swathe of things of people being able to do stuff that they couldn't do before. I mean, what would that look like, perhaps? It's a bit hard to describe musical technique, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, what will you be able to do that was like, wow, that could open the door for a lot more creative expression and freedom?
But the thing is that clap is now available to many people, or has been available to many people for 2 days and almost 2 hours. And there are already multiple YouTube videos that people have made where that are jaw-dropping. They simply are jaw-dropping. So they use the features. They add modulators over modulators on our plugins or on Surge, or there are a couple more synthesizers out there, like Dexter, the FM synth, and like Odin, which is a very complex synth. And so I think it's not up to us to say what they can do or should do, but people will just do, and they will surprise us and certainly amaze us. I'm sure of it.
Oh, undoubtedly.
On the side of plugin development as well as the end users. So that's the exciting thing, that we already have a feature set there available to try out. For instance, the Bitwig power user Polarity on YouTube is showing off what he can do with UHE plugins inside Bitwig Studio already, right now, today. So, yeah.
We're here. The release has happened. It's out in the world. What's next? What happens next for you guys? What's the next kind of milestone that you're aiming for, and when can people see the results of this and get hold of it?
The release was the announcement and the release was an incredible success already. So within just 2 days, the amount of creativity that we've been seeing, both on the plugin development side as well as on the making use of the feature set side and making use of clap, because it's already available, is mind-blowing. And we will continue our work to invite partners and industry players to join Clap and to make our industry a better place and more attractive, because I think we all benefit from a vibrant and open, I'm not
ecosystem. I'll say it for you. I mean, it's a beautiful image of it, and I really hope it kind of works out that way, because obviously commercial interests do kind of tend to cloud the waters. But I mean, just the fact that you've started this off and you with this kind of vision in mind is really powerful. So, Urs, when is the full range of UE plugins being clap ready then? Or is that putting you on the spot too much?
No, that's all right. I mean, internally we have everything as clap already. So if one of our plugins is clap, then all of them are anyway. But there is a little bit of extra work, because we already started with the polyphonic modulation in some plugins, and bringing it to all plugins is probably another 1 or 2 weeks of work for somebody. Actually, that somebody is probably me. And so, and I have to see where my resources are currently. Currently, I'm typing 24 hours a day, answering questions about clap on forums and social media. So I don't get to code at the moment. So maybe next week I can start doing that again. And I think, and yeah, also we will finally do full MPE support that goes hand in hand with clap for us. And yeah, so let's give it maybe 2 months or so. Then that's where we think we'll have everything out, roughly. Optimistically, we'll see.
Well, I mean, I know it's always very painful to put absolute dates on anything, but fair play for having it. Okay. So, Alex, now the launch has happened. Are you now in a kind of coder's playground where you could just go off and come up with all these sort of fabulous ideas, or are you still having things being tweaked in real time? Because obviously, as you put a new standard out and people use it loads, you have to kind of go, oh yeah, there's a little tweak that needs this, that, and the other. I mean, are you able to have the creative fun, or is it mostly there's just sort of maintenance stuff that you're doing now?
So right now it's more about maintenance. So of course, maybe we have a few little bugs in Bitwig, and there are like some adjustment to be done to the specification and documentation. So it's maybe rephrasing certain things, so it's more clear. And there is always this feedback from the community. We also need to consolidate our workflow, because when you are like in the development iteration, you have a very fast iteration process. You do things very fast. But now that it's version 1.0, everything is set in stone, and we are introducing like new process to control how the standard is evolving, and making sure that we take the right amount of security before committing some change, so nothing breaks. And I think that once we've set up all those things, and we also set up like the process, so people can come to us and share their ideas and contribute to the standard, then it will become like more fun.
Excellent.
But I think there is a few months, like you said, where we stabilize everything, like new plugins will come, we maybe fix a few bugs here and there, and then it will be really like solid and amazing for everyone.
Well, that again is a very positive outlook, and I really hope this all works out for you guys. I mean, it's an exciting thing, but I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, new plugin standards are very few and far between, and actually sort of releasing one is a very bold move. I said it was in our news headline, and I think you should be applauded for it, and also for the reasons that you're doing it as well. It feels like a really kind of good, just a really a good way to think about the industry. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you get to have at least some summertime off now, because it's getting that way, and I hope you're not stuck in darkened rooms looking at computer screens for the whole of the rest of the year. No, I could see Urs. But lovely. Alex, thank you very much for joining us, and also Placidus, and also Urs as well. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.